Hello, once again, welcome to thamanjimmy. This is episode 3. Still going, even though we have no views, but that's okay. Today we have 3 main topics: the Duval Courthouse, a new rule, or basically the police response in schools and what they can do as far as discipline, and then also the FCAT scores, which were recently released, at least preliminary scores. And just in like an hour ago or so, a few scores for counties in South Florida came out, and just wanted to discuss that for a little bit if we can. Duval Courthouse. Now, the City Council approved recently, over a mayor's veto, to spend $750,000 to get new furniture. Now, it took about 15 minutes to vote, 15 to override. And I see a lot of people complaining about it, but then I don't really hear too much about it. But there is a lot of news, and every time I go to the courthouse, I see vans there all the time because of the move. But there's supposedly a big outcry over $750,000. And then the fact that the mayor actually vetoed it, I don't really understand either. Once again, it's only $750,000. According to this article, or an opinion, it's a blog post on Jacksonville.com. There was a $350 million price tag for the county. Now, the Better Jacksonville plan approved $190 million. And of course it went up, so it's at $350 million. And now this guy's saying it's going to cost $550 million over a certain period of time, and it could in fact cost $1 billion over time because you need maintenance and then more additional police officers to secure the building. But basically the whole idea of this is that you have a $350 million, and somehow that's okay, and nobody's complaining about that, I guess because it's done and it happened. But $750,000 is a lot. My problem is the moral argument here. Okay, I mean, I don't understand why we would spend $300 million for a courthouse, but if it's going to be brand new, it's going to be beautiful, because it is, why not spend $1 million on new furniture? It's 300, like, I can't comprehend that. And I am a libertarian in the fiscal sense, but I just don't understand how one can approve it but then not approve $1 million. And if you've ever been to the courthouse, they need new furniture. If they've been using furniture for the past 40 years, I see no problem with getting $1 million worth of new furniture, even if it means them having big screen TVs everywhere. While I don't agree with it, again, I don't agree with the $300 million. I wouldn't have voted for that to begin with. They should have done something else. So that's basically just my problem with that. The other one is this story, which is that Duval schools use discretion in marijuana offenses. And this was a bill that was passed in 2009 in Stephen Wise, and actually the whole House supported it. 39 Senate votes, yeas, 119 in the House, no nays at all for this vote. Now, I looked at the bill, and I don't really understand where this language goes in. I just don't see it. I did see something about zero tolerance regarding bringing weapons to school, and this policy would apply to that. But supposedly, I guess this is in there somewhere, that if someone has a minor incident that happens at school, like they bring marijuana, I guess that's minor. If they bring that to school, then they don't necessarily have to go to jail. They don't have to ruin the kid's life by arresting the person. Instead, they can do discipline within the school. And again, I don't really understand this. Again, if you watch the video on this link, which will be posted, it's interesting how it just seems to be a lot of people support this bill. And again, the whole House and the whole Senate voted yay on it. And while I'm not in agreement that, I'm for legalizing drugs, but at the same time, if you're going to penalize an adult, someone who's 19, and they're going to go to jail for a month or a day or whatever it is for possessing marijuana, I don't understand why you shouldn't apply that same rule to someone who's 12 or 15 or 17 or 18. I don't understand that. And I get what we're trying to do is we're trying to help students out, young children, from making mistakes. But to me, this is another Band-Aid issue where we really should be trying to solve the problem, whether that be the problem of school or the problem of legalizing or drugs being illegal. I mean, there's two problems there, and all this does is just it throws the whole moral. It's so morally wrong that we're gonna look to the left, we're gonna look away when a kid does it, but when an adult does it, you're going to jail. And I think that's inherently wrong. It's teaching children bad lessons. Again, I mean, children do rule the world, but they sincerely do when they can conduct a misdemeanor and get away with it. And Wise in the video actually says something about how a kid can throw a chalkboard eraser at a teacher, and that's supposedly a third-degree felony. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, but again, why is that a third-degree felony? Why is that a felony? Why should you get a year in jail for throwing a chalkboard eraser at anyone, whether it be an adult or a student? Again, this is just, it seems to be a Band-Aid to something it's very serious, because while you are harming that other person, you're threatening their lives with an eraser, I don't think it's necessarily fair for anyone to get a year in jail. Even a month in jail, I wouldn't understand. There should be other ways and other means to address that issue, whether it be for adults or students. And then the last issue are the FCATs. Now, this is a big one. I'd like to preface by saying that I am against the FCAT completely. I'm against standardized testing completely, 100%. I think the SAT, the ACT, all this stuff is just silliness. But I understand it's level in our society in the sense that it discriminates, I guess, against the kids or the people who can't even achieve that. So, for example, if you're applying to a school and you can't even get a 600 on a SAT when, let's say, the best is a 1200, then maybe there's an issue that we shouldn't even look at that guy. So it saves them time. I mean, I understand that in a sense, but it doesn't go to the issue of, does that prove that you're intelligent, or does it prove that you have the ability to learn, or the ability to create and produce material that will make this country or this world a better place? And so I do have a problem with it. However, if you're going to have it, and you're going to make it a requirement for graduation or a requirement for funding or anything regarding that nature in the state of Florida, it should be held to high standards and it should be kept. Recently, the standardized testing scores were so bad because they raised it. So they basically raised, the minimum score was 3 out of 6. And it was 4 out of 6. That was like the average. That was, I'm trying to think here. It was a 3 out of 6 you needed to pass. And then they upped it to 4 out of 6. So it'd be a little bit more difficult. And now they lowered it back to 3 out of 6. So basically a 50% is what you need to pass. So where a 50% when I was young was probably an F, because it was 50%, I guess now it's more like the C, because it's average, which I guess makes sense theoretically on the grading scale. But the issue here is that they had 81% of 4th graders pass last year's writing test, and only 27% did as well this year because they raised the score to the 4. Now, I don't have any samples of what student writing looks like because it's not really produced. I Googled it forever and I could not find anything. I did find some reading questions, but the problem is they don't have these anymore. Instead, what they do is say, write about this. Like, I think one of the test questions was, pretend you had homework on the weekends, write a persuasive essay. And there's probably a reason that they have it like that. And interesting enough, why, and I thought this was really cool. Here in Miami-Dade, you had 4th grade, or let's go with 8th grade. 8th grade, 75% in writing. But, okay, 8th grade wasn't the best idea. 10th grade, okay. 10th grade, 83% writing. 4th grade, 81%. Now in reading, 10th grade had 46%. And 9th grade had 48%. There's a huge difference there. And the reason is because reading is objective, at least theoretically, and the writing is subjective. So the writing isn't a scantron. It's someone looking it over and can go, let me look at my checklist and see what I'm going to give you. So now they just need a 3, whereas before they needed a 4. So now word choice is adequate. It just has to be adequate. You know, this is what the test corrector is looking at when he's grading his scores, which is unfortunate because, one, it's a 3, so you're 50%, which isn't high standards enough. But the fact that, you know, word choice is adequate, and this is the government saying adequate, so you already know the standard's lower than what you would think is adequate. You know, what is adequate? If I make $8 an hour, that's adequate. I can survive, but it's not good. It's not $20. It's not $50. It's not $4, but it's pretty dang close. And that's one of the unfortunate parts. But I did want to
this is a big day for
give a question here for, this was a question that was on example of a reading test. So this is again where that 80% came in, and this was I believe the 10th grade. But I'll say it after this. But this is a sentence from the passage, and then ask, what does dexterity mean? Now, any person who knows how to take a test, what they're going to do, and most kids are going to do, is probably, especially the ones that don't care, are probably just going to take one of these words and put it there with surprising difficulty, with surprising hesitation, and then they're either just going to, who cares, probably most kids are going to do that, or they're just going to come up with something. But I just wanted to give an example of some of the questions. And this was an interesting one, I thought, is this one. And the reason I thought this was interesting, because I just don't see the point. The other one, at least I can understand, it's kind of teaching something, but why do I care what a simile is, or symbolism, or imagery? Why does that matter? How does that in any way, in any sense, apply in real life? Besides preparing you for college, because you're going to have to take the same exact test when you're in 13th grade. It's just ridiculous. And then this was another one that I thought was funny. Now this is 8th grade. And this is Wildcats. This is her writing plan. And then the question was, under which subtopic should details about grassy areas, forests, and mountains be placed? And which detail below supports the subtopic behavior? Again, these are really easy questions, and I'm by no means a genius. But in 8th grade, if we can't do this, we do have a problem. But basically, the point that I was trying to get, and then this article here that says, Florida not kids flunked FCAT testing, and of course is an opinion piece. And at the Senate says, at the end it says, someone in this test-obsessed state has clearly failed. I don't think it was the kids. And when they were discussing it in a forum that I'm in, they did the same thing where they're blaming the test, they're blaming the teachers, and I'm with you on that. I completely agree. It's a silly test. But at the same time, the kids should be blamed. You can't even pass the test? Like, what's going on that's happening? And to me, it reminds me of the housing bubble, and where nobody placed the blame on the people buying the houses. Those are the people who first should be placed to blame, and then you blame everyone else. So admit that you made a mistake, and then blame everyone else. And then try to, most importantly, figure out what's going on and how to fix it. And for example, here you have money, and that's what this is. You know, Pearson, $254 million 4-year contract, and that's what this testing is about, unfortunately. But most importantly, I thought this was an interesting fact and I think you're going to have the same statistics with the math. It's going to be probably similar to this, especially since they just lowered the expectations again. Back the passing score to the 50%. And I think you're going to see the same thing where you see the writing scores are higher, and that's because it's subjective, and then all the objectives horrible. And again, only 51% of ninth graders are at 50% level of reading, or at average level. And we saw the question that was asked and how easy it was. And they can only answer half of those questions correct. Now, of course, I tried to see how those tests were actually scored, and it is chaos. And I think they do that for a reason, so that people don't know how they scored these tests, because it is insanely difficult to understand. But that is today's show, and the question of the day, I suppose, would be, how should we grade students? How should we distinguish one student from another, and what should be the goal of school? Should it be to pass the standardized test? Should it not? Should it be required? Again, I think it's useful in some sense, at least to see where a basic understanding, but it should definitely not be a whole, and it should not be studied too, like what they do in Duval County. That is the show for today. Thank you very much. And like always, I have this problem.